So, one final reason to reject the Book of Enoch. This isn't a common reason given to reject the Book of Enoch. It's my reason to reject the Book of Enoch. Claiming the Book of Enoch to be scripture because of false premises, all of those arguments that we've looked at which turn out to be false, or a personal liking for the narrative, is recklessness with the word of Elohim. And it absolutely is. The word of Elohim is to be holy and set apart and treated with such reverence as the truth, the actual truth, something that you can rely on with your life. That is something to which the Book of Enoch should not even approach. To associate it with the same things, perhaps by putting it in the same Bible as those things, creates an association in people's minds which simply is not justified. And to call it scripture without any evidence, and now we've looked at the evidence and there is none, and people can now be well informed as to the reasons that they previously believed to be true. That is recklessness with the word of Elohim. It's not treating it with reverence in the slightest. 2 Peter 1, 2-3 says, "Favor and peace be increased to you in the knowledge of Elohim and of Yeshua our Master. As his divine power has given to us all we need for life and reverence through the knowledge of him who called us to esteem and uprightness." Everything that you need is in the Bible. You don't need to be going to the Book of Enoch to get anything. It adds nothing to the Bible. And taking it away from the Bible reduces the Bible in no way. Elohim has given us all that we need for life and reverence through the knowledge of him given to us in the Bible. 2 Timothy 3, 14-17 says, "But you, stay in what you learned and trusted, having known from whom you've learned." We know from whom we have learned with the Bible. Stay in what we've learned and trusted. "And that from a babe you have known the set-apart scriptures, which are able to make you wise unto salvation through belief in Messiah Yeshua." The scriptures are able to do this. This outside entity, without any evidence that it is scripture, or with a load of false evidence that it's scripture commonly presented, should come nowhere near it in our walks. "All scripture is breathed by Elohim and profitable for teaching, for reproof, for setting straight, for instruction in righteousness." Something that we should not be keen to attribute to a book that in the final analysis we have no reason to. "That the man of Elohim might be fitted, equipped for every good work." It's what scripture does for us. It's what the Bible does for us. Look at the Book of Enoch and say, if that stuff was true, it would be interesting. But who cares? No proof that it's true. No reason to believe that it's true. And so for me personally, any interest that it might have dissipates entirely. I'd only be interested in learning those things if they were true, and that should be, in my own subjective estimation, the way that anybody approaches any information. Titus 1, 10-14. "But there are many refractory men, senseless talkers and deceivers, especially those of the circumcision." So these are the Jews that he's talking about here. "Whose mouths have to be stopped, who upset entire households, teaching what they should not teach for the sake of filthy gain." Okay, and I am not talking about any ministries that teach this and make some kind of financial recompense from doing that. I'm saying that these people that he's talking about upset entire households. This doctrine causes division, and they're teaching what they should not teach for the sake of filthy gain. So people that do fall into this category is what this is speaking of. And there are people that fall into that category who will be willing to continue to teach the Book of Enoch, even though it has been exposed to have no factual validity to the arguments that are made or the evidence that is presented for the arguments. One of them, a prophet of their own, said, "Cretans are always liars, evil beasts, lazy gluttons. This witness is true, therefore rebuke them sharply in order for them to be sound in the belief." You are now equipped to rebuke anybody who comes to you with the Book of Enoch or with any of these reasons to believe it. You are now equipped to rebuke them and say, "No, those things are not true. I understand that that's what you believe. And to your conscience, you're doing what is right. And that's fine. Nobody's calling you evil or wicked or anything like that." But then you can rebuke the teaching that they're bringing forth as incorrect. You go to them in private, just as they went to Apollos in private and spoke to him and said, "I like the zeal that you've got, but the things that you're teaching, perhaps this is not correct." Not paying attention to Jewish fables and the commands of men who turn from the truth. And that is about the best title that you could give to Enoch factually. It's a Jewish fable. Maybe it would turn out to be a true Jewish fable, but we've got no reason to believe that it's a true Jewish fable. It's just a story, a very fantastical story. 1 Timothy 1, 3-7 says, "As I appealed to you when I went into Macedonia to remain in Ephesus, in order to command some not to teach differently." Okay, so what were they teaching? Nor to pay attention to fables, endless genealogies which cause disputes rather than an administration of Elohim which is in belief. So the righteousness which is in the Bible, that's what we should be seeking to come together over. These things cause disputes between believers. While we do not know that it should be counted to Scripture, and no evidence suggests that it should, we shouldn't be teaching things which cause these divisions. Rather, what we should be doing is seeking the righteousness and the justice that is in the word of Elohim and an administration of these things within the body. Now, the goal of this command is love from a clean heart, from a good conscience and a sincere belief, which some, having missed the goal, turned aside to senseless talk, wishing to be teachers of the Torah, understanding neither what they say nor concerning what they strongly affirm. Many will come to you and they will strongly affirm the reasons that I have gone through. Okay, but they don't understand those things that they say, and they strongly affirm them to be true. Now, this again is not any kind of condemnation of anybody who's ever believed the Book of Enoch. I used to believe the Book of Enoch. Okay, I'm certainly not saying anything about anyone, and these things should not be misunderstood. But this is what was going on in the past. Command some not to teach differently, teaching things which cause disputes rather than an administration of Elohim. So if you're teaching something and it causes a dispute in the body and doesn't cause an administration of righteousness, then we should command people not to do that. Some have missed the goal and they turned aside to senseless talk. And that's not me saying that any talk about the Book of Enoch is senseless talk, because when it comes from a clean conscience and it comes from the position of, I believe this is Scripture, therefore we should pay attention to it, I can't argue with that position. However, people will strongly affirm things that they don't actually understand. And now we've looked at it and we have understanding of those things, a much deeper understanding than perhaps we possessed before. I know that that is true of me personally. 1 Enoch 106, 1-6. I want you to consider what it is to believe the things written in the Ge'ez translation, the Ge'ez version of the Book of Enoch. And 106, this is actually supposedly a fragment from the Book of Noah, but it is included in this Book of Enoch, which they have. It says, "After some days, my son Methuselah took a wife for his son Lamech and became pregnant by him and bore a son. And his body was white as snow and red as the blooming of a rose, and the hair of his head and his long locks were white as wool." Sounds like Yeshua again, doesn't it? But this is Noah. It's not Enoch this time, it's Noah. "And his eyes beautiful, And when he opened his eyes, he lighted up the whole house like the sun, and the whole house was very bright. And thereupon he arose in the hands of the midwife, opened his mouth, and conversed with the Lord of righteousness. So this is Noah. When he was born, the midwife lifted him up, and he conversed with the Lord of righteousness. And when he opened his eyes, he lighted up the entire house. And that's not metaphorical language, it's literal, as we'll see. His father Lamech was afraid of him and fled, and came to his father Methuselah. And he said unto him, I have begotten a strange son, diverse from and unlike man, and resembling the sons of God of heaven. And his nature is different, and he is not like us. And his eyes are as the rays of the sun, and his countenance is glorious. Okay? And it seems to me that he is not sprung from me, but from the angels. And I fear that in his days a wonder may be wrought on the earth. So if we are to believe the Book of Enoch, this is the sort of thing that we are going to have to take on board as new doctrine, as truth from the words of Elohim themselves. And this is not something that I personally, subjectively, have any desire to even acknowledge. It's an old writing. It's part of the Book of Noah. It's now part of the Book of Enoch. 2 Timothy 4, 1-4, in the sight of Elohim and the Master Yeshua Messiah, who shall judge the living and the dead that is appearing in his reign, I earnestly charge you, proclaim the word, be urgent in season, out of season, reprove, warn, appeal with all patience and teaching. Sound doctrine. Reprove people. Help them get on the right path. Help them to walk in righteousness. Have the administration of Elohim. Administrate those things which he gives us to do in the Bible, which seems to me subjectively to be of a completely different character and to be about completely different themes and motifs than this work. For there shall be a time when they shall not bear sound teaching or endure sound doctrine, but according to their own desires they shall heap up for themselves teachers tickling the ear. Okay, no, we don't want the administration of Elohim and that we've got to walk in righteousness and we've got to be concerned with our sin, righteousness and judgment and those things. What we want is the fantastical work of the Book of Elohim, and we must be careful that we don't start to gravitate towards that and start to read the Book of Enoch more than we even read the scriptures, or talk about the Book of Enoch more than we read the scriptures, or change our understanding of the Bible to reflect things that we've learned from the Book of Enoch. We have no reason to do so. And they shall indeed turn their ears away from the truth and be turned aside to myths. And I'm not saying that this is definitely talking about such things as the Book of Enoch. Okay, I can't prove this to you one way or the other. All I can say is that all of the arguments for it fall flat on their face and are based on misunderstandings and misinterpretations. And just through not understanding the actual Bible well enough, people need to spend their time in what is the word of Elohim rather than what they entertain as the word of Elohim. So, my subjective judgments, I subjectively give a 10 out of 10 for being factual. And lo and behold, it's amazing what happens when you mark things yourself. I give a 10 out of 10 as an argument for not including it in Scripture. But I don't see that it is not correct for us to guard the word of Elohim and to guard it from such things that would come from the outside without any evidence, and to suggest these huge changes in doctrine on the basis of them.